Hey YouTube, it's EvanMagician34. I've got another cool casual deck for you. As you may have noticed, as we get close to the end of the format, I'm doing less serious decks because in literally less than a month's time, this format's going to change, probably a lot in September. So, I mean, might as well cut loose, have a little fun, and if you're not going to Worlds, you know, the competitive season's over anyway. So, this is an old thing done a new way. And it shouldn't take you long to figure out what it is, well, assuming you didn't read the title. Yeah. We're going to open up with 3 copies of Steam Roid, one of my favorite Roid monsters of all time. Just a good beat stick. Still runs over a lot of good 4-star stuff, which can't be said of too many guys anymore, because there's so much 1900 and junk. But, yeah, good aggressor, not good at taking hits, but we have ways around that, which you'll see later in the deck. Alright. Also running 3 copies of Drill Roid. You don't have to have the foil one, obviously. He comes as a common, but the foils are very nice. He will flip things that he attacks, so you'll still see things like Ryko and Spy go off, but at least he kills them with his effect. So, anyway, another good sized guy. Also running Truck Roid. Yeah, you don't see a lot of this guy, but he's got 2 grand for defense and 1,000 attack. And we do run, actually, I'll go ahead and reveal the cool tech card. We're running Inverse Universe in this deck, which you can flip to make him a 2,000 point attacker. And when he kills stuff, he equips it to himself and he gains its attack as his own. Now what's really cool about that is, as long as he's around, it means not only is he getting bigger, which, yeah, is nice, but he's also denying your opponent having that stuff in their grave, which for a lot of decks can actually slow them down and hurt them in whole new ways. So, he's pretty good for a 4-star. And of course you can always just set him in defense mode. We also run 2 copies of Express Roid so that we can recycle all that stuff. 400, 1600, so you can always set him in a pinch. We're also running 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. This is a pretty straightforward deck, largely machine-oriented, in case you hadn't already figured that out. We also run the Ever-Loving Card Trooper. And 3 copies of Thunder King Ryo. He's still a good first turn drop, and a good generic beat stick all the way around, just an awesome card. Worth running, because we're going for kind of an aggressive bent here, in case you hadn't figured that one out. We're also running another cool card that plays well with Inverse Universe, and racks up quick damage with high liability, which seems to be the theme for this deck. Injection Fairy Lily. Don't see her a whole lot, but then that too is yet another recurring theme of the deck. But she can make a lot of damage in a hurry, especially if you inverse her. She can rack up like 3 grand plus that way. So, it's a good fit. And also, if when your field gets cleaned, which is going to happen periodically, we do run Gores. And for when they run over things like Extreme Roid, which is going to happen, we also run Tragoedia. And since we also run Supercharge, there are cool ways you can use Tragoedia. And last but not least, we run Morphing Jar because hand burnout happens from time to time. And he's probably going to be your only set realistically except maybe Truck Roid. But still, good to refill your hand in a deck like this. So it's a good inclusion. Future Fusion. Obviously we run Chimera Tech Over Dragon and a couple other things, so just a good way to dump stuff in your grave. And more importantly, to power up this next card, Overload Fusion. Remember that if Future Fusion goes against Chimera Tech destroys Future Fusion, which destroys Chimera Tech. So you don't actually want to summon him that way. It's all just to set up Overload Fusion, which will summon the Chimera Tech that will destroy the Future Fusion that would have summoned the other Chimera Tech. Just do it carefully. This is an awesome way to summon a big giant monster, beat your opponent to death, and of course Chimera Tech also doesn't care about Inverse Universe. Just one more cool casual play trick. Storm. MST. Those should all be pretty obvious. Brain Control, the only reason you run Synchros basically, because obviously, if you've been paying attention earlier, we don't actually run any tuners in the main deck, but that's fine because, hey, we're just going to use this mainly to beat people over the head, steal their Synchros, use them against them. And if all else fails, you might, especially against like Blackwings, you might steal a tuner theoretically, and if you do that, well, you might sink. But more often than not, it's just to get a beat stick or get something out of your way. Limiter, obviously the best way to beat stuff to death. And we're also running 2 copies of Book of Moon, stops synchros, blah blah blah, lets you run stuff over, can save your monsters in a pinch. But most of the deck, in terms of backing up your monsters, is going to be in the trap department. Torrential, basically revenge kill for impending death. Double Bottomless. Another obvious one these days. Mirror Force, which isn't getting included as much, but it's still a worthwhile card. So, we don't like getting attacked as much, so Mirror Force makes it for that reason. As well as 2 copies of D-Prison, which just hurts everybody all the way around. If you don't get kiln late or something horrible like that, it's a good way to protect yourself. And it hurts GBs, needless to say. 3 copies of Inverse Universe. Most of your monsters are either better in their defensive stat or equal in offense and defense. So this rarely ever hurts you at all, if ever. And the best part is this switch is permanent. It's not just that one turn that you activate it. And almost every other deck suffers horribly when this card is activated. So it's just an awesome card all the way around. You can certainly chain it when they activate something, because odds are good they'll leave something on the field. You can force them to make plays they don't want to on its worst days, and on its better days it can certainly upset the entire field. Steam Roid, Drill Roid, they don't care. Express Roid actually becomes an attacker when this thing is activated. So nothing not to love there. And we're running 2 copies of Supercharge. You can opt in a third, but myself I'm only running 2 because we only have 10 Roid monsters in the deck. So this should be enough, but most of your Roid monsters are lightning rods for attack anyway. So it's a great way to keep your hand stocked. And you can also fake for D-Prison. Alright, and the extra deck, we're running 2 Chimera Tech Overdragons. Basically we have to because one for Future, one for Overload if you get those 2 together, obviously. So, gotta run 2 copies. 1 Chimera Tech Fortress, for the obvious reasons. And it's possible that you might Future Fuse and pitch both your Cyber Dragons for a Cyber Twin. Not likely, but it could be a good play under the right circumstances. And since the extra deck is, well, almost never going to get used anyway, might as well put this guy in. You're probably going to tap into him more likely than a Synchro anyway. As crazy as that sounds. But we do run some Synchros, basically one of each. Stardust, Red Dragon Arcfiend, Colossal Fighter, Thought Ruler Arcfiend. Feel free to change it up with whatever you want. Black Rose Dragon. Yeah, kind of hard to see that in the light. I do include Armor Master if you steal a Blackwing Tuner, Breeze, or Gale, or whoever. Rebellum, Goyo, Bryanak, Magical Android, and last but not least, Ally of Justice Catastor. Alright. And there you go. That's the Roid deck. And until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and enjoy.